As therapist Britt Frank explains in her groundbreaking book The Science of Stuck, the real reasons we get bogged down often have little to do with laziness or lack of willpower. In fact, our brains are actually wired to resist change, even when it's positive. The key to getting unstuck lies in understanding the hidden psychology and neuroscience behind our stuck patterns. Procrastination, a misguided attempt at self-protection. One of the most common culprits of stuckness is procrastination. We often think of procrastination as a character flaw or a sign of poor work ethic. But as Britt Frank points out, procrastination is actually a highly motivated behavior, just not in the way we think. When we procrastinate, we're not being lazy. We're actually trying to protect ourselves from potential failure, disappointment, or overwhelm. By putting off that challenging task or difficult conversation, we get to stay in the safe zone of the familiar a little longer. Procrastination is just one example of how our brains are designed to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term rewards. Our ancient survival instincts are still very much at play in the modern world, even when the threats we face are more psychological than physical. The part of your brain that kept your ancestors alive by avoiding unknown risks is the same part that convinces you to hit the snooze button instead of going for that morning run. But the real problem with procrastination isn't just the temporary discomfort it shields us from. It's the long-term cost to our confidence and self-trust. Every time we fail to follow through on our intentions, we reinforce the belief that we can't count on ourselves. We start to identify as someone who's unreliable or incapable of change. The more we procrastinate, the more stuck we feel. So, if procrastination is a misguided attempt at self-protection, how do we outsmart it? Key is to make the task feel less threatening to your brain. One way to do this is to break it down into such small, manageable steps that it hardly feels like a challenge at all. If the idea of starting a big project feels daunting, try setting a goal to work on it for just 5 minutes. Or if you've been putting off a difficult conversation, start by brainstorming a few key points you want to express. By chunking it down into bite-sized pieces, you sneak past your brain's threat detector and build positive momentum. The myth of motivation. Another surprising reason we get stuck is the myth of motivation. We often believe that we need to feel motivated or inspired to take action, and if we don't, we take it as a sign that it's not the right time or that we're not cut out for the task. But the truth is, motivation is often a result of action, not a prerequisite for it. In other words, you don't need to feel like going for that run to lace up your sneakers and start moving. The more you take consistent action, even when you don't feel like it, the more motivated you'll feel over time. This is because motivation is heavily influenced by dopamine, a neurotransmitter that's released when we anticipate a reward. The more we take action and experience positive results, the more dopamine our brains release in anticipation of future rewards. But if we wait around for motivation to strike before we start, we miss out on this natural feedback loop. The key is to focus on the tiniest possible action you can take right now, knowing that motivation will catch up with you as you build momentum. Hidden benefits of staying stuck. But the science of stuck isn't just about procrastination and motivation. There are hidden benefits to staying stuck that often keep us looping in the same old patterns, even when we consciously want to change. Avoiding the discomfort of growth. One of these benefits is the avoidance of difficult emotions. Change is inherently uncomfortable, even when it's positive. It requires us to let go of the familiar, face the uncertainty of the unknown, and confront any fears or limiting beliefs that have been holding us back. For example, let's say you've been stuck in an unfulfilling job for years. On the surface, you know you want to make a change. But the thought of updating your resume, going on interviews, and potentially facing rejection is so anxiety-provoking that you convince yourself it's better to stay put. Or maybe you've been meaning to have a difficult conversation with a loved one, but the idea of rocking the boat and dealing with potential conflict feels so overwhelming that you keep putting it off. In both of these cases, staying stuck allows you to avoid the discomfort of growth. It keeps you in the predictable world of the known, even if that world is no longer serving you. The problem is that avoiding difficult emotions only works in the short term. In the long run, it keeps you trapped in a cycle of stagnation and self-doubt, wondering why you can't seem to break through your own inner glass ceiling. So how do we find the courage to face our fears and take action, even when it's uncomfortable? One key is to reframe discomfort as a sign of growth, not a sign of failure. When you feel resistance or anxiety come up around a task or goal, try to see it as evidence that you're on the right track. You're stepping outside your comfort zone and expanding your capacity to handle new challenges. With practice, you can learn to lean into discomfort instead of running from it, maintaining a sense of safety. Another hidden benefit of staying stuck is the sense of familiarity and safety it provides in our relationships. Even if we're not happy with the status quo, there's a certain comfort in knowing what to expect from ourselves and others. We may bond with friends over our shared struggles, or feel a sense of belonging in our family role as the responsible one or the black sheep. Changing our habits and behaviors, even for the better, can feel like a threat to these long-standing dynamics. For example, imagine you've always been the go-to person for advice and problem-solving in your friend group. You pride yourself on being the rock that others can rely on. But lately, you've been feeling drained and resentful, realizing that you need to set better boundaries and prioritize your own needs. The thought of disappointing others or disrupting the familiar pattern of your relationships feels so daunting that you convince yourself it's better to just keep giving until you've got nothing left. Or maybe you've been the wild child in your family for as long as you can remember. You've always been the one to push boundaries and take risks, while your siblings played it safe and followed the rules. But now, as an adult, you're realizing that your impulsive tendencies are holding you back from the stability and success you crave. The idea of changing your ways and becoming a more responsible version of yourself feels like a betrayal of your long-standing identity and family role. In both of these cases, staying stuck allows us to maintain a sense of predictability and belonging in our relationships, even if it's not truly fulfilling. But as Frank points out, the cost of this false safety is a life half-lived, a version of ourselves that never gets to fully shine. The key to breaking free is to realize that healthy relationships can adapt and grow with us as we evolve. By communicating our needs and boundaries with compassion and clarity, we give others the chance to meet us where we are and support our growth. So if getting unstuck is so important, why does it often feel so hard to do? One reason is that our brains are wired to resist change, even when it's positive. From an evolutionary perspective, our brains are designed to keep us safe by avoiding potential threats and conserving energy. In the modern world, this translates to a tendency to overestimate the risks of trying something new and underestimate our ability to handle challenges. For example, let's say you've always dreamed of starting your own business, but the thought of leaving the security of your 9-to-5 job feels too risky. Your brain immediately goes to worst-case scenarios. What if you fail? What if you can't pay your bills? What if everyone thinks you're crazy for even trying? These fears are your brain's way of keeping you safe, but they're not necessarily accurate predictions of what will happen. Breaking free from stuckness. The truth is, our brains are terrible at estimating our own resilience and resourcefulness. We often underestimate our ability to handle stress, bounce back from setbacks, and find creative solutions to problems. But the only way to build that resilience muscle is to take small risks and prove to ourselves that we can handle more than we think. So if you're feeling stuck and uncertain about how to move forward, remember that small steps are the key to big changes. Start by identifying your unique stuck patterns and the hidden benefits they provide. Then challenge yourself to take one tiny action outside your comfort zone, whether it's sending an email you've been putting off or trying a new hobby you've been curious about. Celebrate every micro-victory along the way, knowing that each small step is rewiring your brain for greater confidence and resilience. As you practice this process of self-awareness and micro-actions, remember to approach yourself with compassion and patience. Lasting change is a journey, not a destination. You'll have setbacks and struggles along the way, but that doesn't mean you're failing. It simply means you're human, and growth is rarely a linear process. By staying curious about your own patterns and committed to small, consistent steps, you'll start to see your life transform in ways you never thought possible. The science of stuck reminds us that feeling frozen or unmotivated is not a personal failing. It's a natural response to the inherent discomfort of growth. By bringing awareness to the hidden beliefs and behaviors that keep us stuck, we can start to untangle them with self-compassion and strategic action. Remember, every tiny step counts, and you are more resilient than you know. With patience, persistence, and a willingness to embrace discomfort, a life of greater freedom and fulfillment awaits.